hi, hopefully that's, sorry, running a little bit late. It's just taken me a while to get set up here and get kids set up downstairs with their homeschooling, hopefully. So apologies for running late with the session today. So my name's Jo. I'm one of the Women's Health Physios up at Oxford. I'm going to do a bit of a session today. Talking a bit about, I'll talk a bit about our team. I'll talk a bit about the service that we're running at the moment, because it certainly is a modified service at the moment. I'll talk a bit about sort of pregnancy-related conditions, so particularly pelvic girdle pain. Talk a little bit about that, about just some top tips for sort of managing that at the moment, and just also about pelvic floor. Can't sort of do a session without talking about pelvic floor, and also a little bit about how you can sort of a bit about postnatal recovery as well, because we do run a sort of postnatal service as well. So I'll talk a bit about those things, try and answer any questions that do pop up as well. But firstly, a bit about our team. So we're a team of 6 physios, and we have a therapy assistant as well. And at the moment, our service is quite modified. So the majority of our team are sort of helping out and supporting other teams on the wards at the hospital. So where the service that we're running, so normally we would see a lot of women during pregnancy for things like pelvic girdle pain is the sort of most common one, back pain, hip pain, all those sorts of things. At the moment, we unfortunately are not able to see anyone face-to-face for those appointments. We are still doing some telephone consults though, so certainly if you're having some significant problems with any of these conditions at the moment, you still can get referred. Your midwife can still refer you to our service, and we would obviously try and arrange a phone consult for you. But yeah, unfortunately we're not able to do any face-to-face sessions at the moment. So we are still running a modified service, but yeah, only telephone consults at the moment. So just thinking, if we sort of think about pelvic girdle pain to start with, then so pelvic girdle pain is it's probably the most common problem that we see during pregnancy. So we probably know that about 50% of women during pregnancy would get some sort of back, hip, pelvic pain, and if we think of sort of where that comes from, the majority of it is actually coming from the pelvis. So it's less likely that you're going to have what we would think of as low back pain. More commonly, it would tend to be in pregnancy, be pelvic girdle pain. Yeah, that's certainly the most common condition that we see during pregnancy. It tends to sort of occur during pregnancy, and then hopefully, usually, it improves postnatally. There's quite, there is variability in terms of how quickly it recovers afterwards. We know that the longer that you have it during pregnancy, the more severe it is during pregnancy, it does tend to take a bit longer to resolve. Not always, sometimes it still resolves really quickly. But for some women who've had PGP in pregnancy, it can be gone immediately after giving birth, typically a couple of weeks, but for some people it does last a little bit longer. Yeah, but it does tend to get better. So we know that, we're really focusing on management during pregnancy, trying to manage the symptoms as best as we can, and then hopefully it's going to improve afterwards. It tends to be pain right around the pelvis. So it could be pain in the pubic bone at the front of the pelvis, so that hard bone right at the front of the pelvis. That's the pubic symphysis. So some women may only have pain in that area, and that could be called SPD, so symphysis pubis dysfunction. It could be called pubic symphysitis, so that refers to pain only in that pubic bone at the front. or it could be pain at the back, and some people will only have pain at the back. So pain sort of really low down, so right at the base of the spine, those little dimples on either side at the base, or coming down into the glutes, the buttock sort of area. Sometimes it might come down a little bit further down the back of the leg as well. It tends to be related to, well, it can be related to obviously pregnancy hormone changes during pregnancy, changes in posture as well, stretching of those abdominal muscles, so we might not have as much support from the abdominal muscles at the moment as well. So there's certainly lots of things that you can do to help manage these symptoms during pregnancy. There are some good websites and resources that you can look at as well. So there's a website called Pelvic Partnerships. So that's www.pelvicpartnership.org.uk. So pelvicpartnership.org.uk, and that's they've got lots of good tips in there on their sort of website. There's also POGP is our sort of professional group, and they've got a really good PGP leaflet on their website. So it's pogp.csp.org.uk/publications. So the POGP website, which is pogp.csp.org.uk/publications, they've got a leaflet called Pregnancy Related Pelvic Girdle Pain for Mothers to Be and New Mothers. So that leaflet is really, again, it's a good resource. It's got lots of really good information, not just on PGP either, but on other common conditions during pregnancy, things like carpal tunnel, so pins and needles, numbness in the hands, for example, could potentially be some carpal tunnel, and so lots of other things that they've got some advice for in that leaflet. Okay, so but what would our top tips be for PGP management during pregnancy? I think the biggest thing I would say is it's really important to modify how you're moving. So if you can really try and keep your movements slightly smaller and what we would say is more symmetrical, that can really make a big difference. So I often talk to people about basically you've got to be a bit of a move, you know, imagine your sort of princess getting out of a car. If you think of Princess Di, you know, getting out of the car with the knees together, that's sort of how you really want to be moving. So rolling over in bed, your knees sort of stay together, hips, shoulders, we want to move everything over at the same time. Getting in and out the car, when you go to get out the car, rather than kind of kicking the door open with your foot and then taking a step out of the car, it's sort of opening the door, moving both knees out together at the same time, so keeping your knees together as you move, sort of move those legs around. Even just standing up from a chair. Often we're in a bit of a rush and we're kind of taking a step as we're standing up from the chair. All of those type of movements, you tend to put a lot, you know, you really sort of put weight through one side, and that's what we really want to avoid. We want to avoid that sort of really sort of weight bearing heavily through one side. If we can really keep even weight bearing through both legs as much as we can, that can really help. So when you go to stand up, just kind of take your time, move yourself to the front of the chair, bring your feet back, and try and stand up with even weight through both feet. Then just pause for a moment, and then when you're walking, we want to take slightly smaller steps than normal. So smaller steps, and try and keep your steps sort of more even. So the way you're moving is really important. We really want to try and avoid that sort of really single leg stance, really. So things like not standing on one leg to put your pants and socks and shoes on, so always try and sit down to do that and then stand up with that even weight on both feet. Avoid things where that lunging sort of movement where you might be taking, you know, really putting again weight onto one leg and then back. So typically things like vacuuming, mopping, all those sorts of things where you're in that bit of a lunge position, sort of leaning forward and then back. Just completely trying to eliminate that. Avoid stairs as much as you can, and I know that we often have stairs at home that we might be needing to do, but just trying to take your time and just be a bit sort of, you know, try and avoid having to do it constantly throughout the day. So if you can sort of have what you need more on one level and minimize the amount of time you're having to go up and down stairs, then that would be great. And that can really make a big difference. So yeah, so definitely really trying to sort of minimize that sort of single leg stance, taking even weight, avoiding standing on one leg, all those sorts of things. If you can really focus on how you can modify that in itself at the beginning is going to make a big difference. Just looking at some of the questions. Okay, yeah, restless legs. So the clicking and aching around, again, that can be coming back into that PGP sort of thing. So a bit of laxity, a bit of hormonal laxity around. The pelvis can cause just some general aching, but that clicking as well. Restless legs is another really common one. That's a really hard one. It's really, there's not, you know, nothing in particular that I can advise for the restless legs. Trying to do some calf stretches. People sometimes get sort of restless legs and cramping in the calves. So doing some calf stretches, particularly if this is bothering you sort of at night in bed. We can I can show you a calf stretch at the end. But yeah, trying to just move around a little bit during the day, do some stretches. But the restless legs is a really typical one during pregnancy. Exercises. I'll go through a few exercises, some of the ones that I like for PGP as well. I'll show you some at the end. I've got I don't have a ball here, but I do have a mat, so I can go through some of those. Someone mentioned always having a pillow between the legs. Yeah, so again, that comes down to that. We're really trying to keep that symmetrical pelvis, so not standing on one leg, avoiding stairs, avoiding those lunging type movements, and that goes when you're lying in bed as well. So you're off, as you're lying on your side mostly. When you're lying on your side, the top leg will often sort of come forward, and so you're getting the legs almost crossing over then. So we still want to keep that really sort of symmetrical position. So sort of knees and ankles the same distance apart as your hips. So if you're lying on your side and you can put a pillow between your knees, then sort of knees and ankles even, so that you're keeping that sort of even distance between ankles, knees and hips, even when you're lying on your side. And then, like I said, when you try and roll over in bed, then try and almost keep the pillow there when you roll over, so you're still keeping sort of even distance, that hip distance apart, and move hips, knees and ankles over at the same time. Heat packs and ice packs can be really helpful for PGP. So ice packs, particularly, I would say if you have really bad pubic symphysis pain at the front, I would definitely recommend an ice pack there, and particularly also at the back, so almost more the joints. If your pain seems like it's around the joint, so the pubic bone at the front, or around those more sharper pain around the dimply areas at the back, so that's really where those sacroiliac joints are. Really sore at the end of the day, those sorts of things, an ice pack can be really good. So if you're using ice, an ice pack, a pack of frozen peas, something like that, always wrap it in something. So you might just wrap it in a tea towel or something like that, and just placing it over that area 15 minutes at a time. When you're using an ice pack, it should feel cold, it might feel a bit numb. It should never feel burning. Burning means it's too cold, just take it off. But cold to numb for 15 minutes. So an ice pack wrapped in something, and that can be really relieving, particularly if you use it quite often, every few hours throughout the day. So if you've done something and you think your symptoms have really flared, like that typical, almost sort of done a bit too much and the pain sort of has flared, then ice can be a really good way of settling pain down. It's an anti-inflammatory, so it can help settle those symptoms down. So ice packs can be really good. If it's more achy, so your glutes are a bit achy, you're achy on the outside of the hips, that sort of thing, then heat packs can be better. So heat pack, again, like one of the wheat bags that you could put in the microwave. If it's a hot water bottle, make sure it's well wrapped in something. Again, heat should be comfortably warm, not hot, just comfortably warm. And that you can, again, sort of 15 to 20 minutes. If it gets hot, take it off, but comfortably warm for 15 to 20 minutes. And then, again, you could do that every few hours. Let me just quickly have a look at these questions as we go. Talking post-delivery. Okay, I'll talk about the post. I'm just going to note that down. Okay, so I will talk about just postnatal recovery. We're mainly going to talk about pelvic floor exercises there. There's nothing specific in terms of having had stitches or not, but we will talk about that when I talk about postnatal things. But sort of during pregnancy, rib pain at night. So again, rib pain's tricky because, you know, as you're progressing during pregnancy, your baby's kind of coming up higher, and the ribs start to sometimes flare a little bit. So we can sometimes get quite stiff through our thoracic spine. So sometimes some stretches. So a nice rotation stretch can be a good one to do. I'll show you a couple of exercises. I'll show you a few exercises in a minute. So I'll add what's called an arm open, because that's quite a nice one. So sometimes it is that we're getting a little bit of flaring through the ribs, a little bit stiff through the thoracic spine. So trying to keep nice and upright in your posture, just even in sitting, just doing some gentle rotation in sitting. If we can sort of try and keep a little bit of movement through that thoracic spine, that upper back. Sometimes when you're lying on your side, something not only between your knees but underneath your tummy, a little bit of a cushion underneath your tummy can help, because sometimes there's a bit sort of a pulling sensation. That heat packs, but really for the ribs and thoracic spine, I would sort of suggest trying some stretches, some rotation type stretches, and I'll show you one for that. Okay, so just responding about a question about being able to physically see someone. So like I mentioned at the beginning, we're not allowed to do any face-to-face appointments at the moment, unfortunately. I would certainly try all these sort of top tips that we're talking about, and have a look at some of the other online advice that we sort of I mentioned, and I can give those resources again at the end. In terms of whether it's PGP or sciatica, sciatica really refers to pain. It's not necessarily a diagnosis as such, sciatica. Basically what it means is it's pain in the area of the sciatic nerve, which basically means pain going down the back of the leg. So that could be, it still could be PGP. So pelvic girdle pain coming from the pelvis, coming from the sacroiliac joint, can go down into the buttock. It can go down the back of the thigh. It doesn't normally go beyond the knee. If you've got pain going all the way down the back of the leg, that can be coming potentially from your low back, or maybe from some of the muscles through the glutes as well. So it's hard to know. Typically with PGP, the things that are going to make it worse are things like standing on one leg, stairs, turning over in bed, getting in and out of bed, getting in and out the car, being on your feet for a bit, doing too much. So they're typically things that would make it sort of worse if it is coming from the pelvis. So if you think, yeah, that really sounds like what's causing the problem, then that it could be PGP. Versus low back pain, if it's coming more from the spine, it could be, it's often more things like the sitting position, bending, lifting, sort of different things might make it worse. So it's a bit hard to know. you can still be referred to us, like I said at the beginning, and we would do a phone consult. And even then, if we can get lots of information from you, hopefully we can still give you some more specific advice about what to be doing during pregnancy. With PGP, again, just pacing yourself is really important. So if you do nothing, if you sat all day, you're going to be stiff and sore. If you do too much, you'll be really sore by the end of the day, and then that can have a knock-on effect on the next day. So it's trying to find just a good in-between, so that you're up and you're doing, going for short walks rather than going for a really long walk. You might just go for sort of a short walk, but really trying to find that balance of being able to do a bit of movement, being able to do a bit of activity, going for a bit of a walk if you can, versus doing too much and really finding by the end of the day you're quite sore, and the next day can be a not good day. And that's when we want to bring in the ice packs and those sorts of things. Maybe I'll show you a few exercises now. So someone's just mentioned a belt. So I've got a belt downstairs. I might run down and get the belt and show you. So a belt, maternity belt. So for some people with PGP, a belt can be helpful. It's not for everyone. And I guess the thing is, if it helps, if you and I can show you how you use it, and if it does help, then use it. If you put it on and it makes your symptoms worse, then yeah, don't use it. But if you do have one, it can certainly help for some people. So if you can give me 60 seconds and I'm going to run down and grab a belt, I'll show you how you would put on a belt, and I'll also show you a couple of exercises that you could potentially try. With any of these, with the belt and with the exercises, if for any reason you've been advised not to do exercise, obviously then don't incorporate these. Typically that would be things like really low-lying placenta or shortened cervix. So if there's anything that is unusual, that you're being monitored for in your pregnancy, just check with your care provider whether it's okay to use a belt or be doing these exercises. But if it's a very sort of straightforward pregnancy, then you'd be fine to try these. So I'm just going to duck out for 60 seconds and I'll come back with a belt to show you. And I'll show you a couple of exercises. So one sec. Okay, so this is one type of like pelvic support belt. So this is, the brand is Oppo. There's lots of them out there. This one's about £12, and you can just find it online. It's the code for this one is 2262, but yeah, it's the Oppo brand. So if you're using a pelvic maternity belt, they usually look a little bit like this. They're often a bit elastic. Now I'm going to hopefully stand up and hopefully you can still see this. So, like I was saying before, pain is normally pubic bone at the front and the low back, so really low down here, just at the top of the glutes. And that's the pelvis, and this is where we want to put the belt. So it doesn't go over your tummy. There are some belts around that help support the tummy, so they will kind of cradle the tummy a little bit. If it's specifically for PGP, it normally goes under the belly. So this one here, some of them, they often have some little tabs that go at the back. Okay, so you would often put it right at your low back. So just over, right at the top of the glutes, over that sort of really low part of your back. Give it a bit of a stretch and do it up. So your tummy would be, if I stick my tummy out, it would be right underneath your tummy, so right over that pubic bone at the front, okay? So over the pubic bone and over that very low back. And if you've got some of these extra tabs, you then just do that up. So it feels just nice and supportive. It should just feel like someone's almost holding your pelvis together, but it goes under your tummy, so over the pubic bone and right over your low back, okay? So that can really help some women. And there are some that are not too expensive out there. So like I said, the Oppo one is about £12. It usually, if you find one online, it should tell you, it should give you a hip measurement, so you can sort of do a measure around your hips to hopefully get sort of the right size. They're usually for when you're on your feet, so that's really to help hold that pelvis together when you're up on your feet and moving around. So if you were going out for a bit of a walk and you find that, you know, it's quite nice to get out and going for a bit of a walk, but it can be a bit, you're getting some pain in those joints. If you put the belt on and go for a walk and it sort of feels better, then you think, well, yeah, that's definitely the right thing to be doing. Occasionally for some women, they put a belt on and they actually think, oh no, that's actually made things worse, so then obviously don't use it. But for some women, it will really help just having that support around the pelvis. It's almost like I said, it's like someone's holding that pelvis together, doing the work of the ligaments, which just have that laxity at the moment. So a pelvic belt for some women can be really, really useful. So yeah, again, like I said, it's fine to try, but just if you thought there was anything specific to your pregnancy that you maybe shouldn't, just check with your midwife or doctor if there's any reason why you shouldn't be using a belt. So maybe let's have a look at a few exercises that can be, again, quite nice to try. The first one that I really like is stretching out your glutes. So basically, your glutes are often a bit spasmy, or really, you know, if your pelvis, you know, is a bit the ligaments are a bit lax, so the pelvis is almost a little bit kind of floppy during pregnancy. Sometimes your glutes are working really hard to help stabilize, to help provide some stability, and so they can get really tight and really sore. And so actually, we just want to sort of give them a nice stretch out, and like I said, some heat over the glutes can be quite nice. So, but a really easy stretch to do, you can just do it sitting in a chair, a really nice glute stretch. Again, let me just see if I can get you, hopefully you can see this. So, if you sit in a chair, you see that? So basically what I'm doing is crossing one foot over the opposite knee. Maybe if I move a bit further back so you can actually see that. Okay, so if I put one foot over the opposite knee, so I'm sitting up nice and straight, just sitting forward in my chair. This is kind of the position in pregnancy you're often using to put your socks and shoes on anyway. But in that position, and you can often do this right to the end because there's often still space here for your tummy, but up nice and tall and just come forward a little bit, and hopefully that gives you a bit of a stretch through the glutes. Just hold it for sort of 15 or 20 seconds, and then do both sides. So then the other side, we put the foot over the opposite knee, sit up nice and tall, and just lean forward a little bit, and again you should get that stretch through those glutes. So that's a nice one that you should still be able to do, because you don't really, for this one you don't need to get down to the floor or anything like that, and just stretching out those glutes can feel really nice. So that's definitely one option, just some heat packs for your glutes and just those stretches, modifying your activity, trying to keep really nice and symmetrical through your movements can be really helpful. I'm going to come down onto a mat and show you a few other exercises. But like I said, one of the biggest things when you go to move, you know, do it in a really sort of think it through. So moving forward to the edge of your chair, leaning forward, even weight through both feet, standing up, taking your time, and then starting to move, take some slightly smaller steps. Okay, I'm going to move the iPad just again. And again, hopefully get into a position where you can see this. So, a really nice position to exercise during pregnancy is in the hands and knees position. So it's a safe position for most women, again, unless you've been advised not to be doing any specific exercise. Have a chat to your midwife or obstetrician, but for most women this is going to be completely fine. So I'm in hands and knees. Really nice one to do is just your cat stretch. So thinking about tucking your tailbone under, rounding your back up, and then going down the other way. So just getting some movement through your spine, rounding up and coming down, and that can feel really nice. You can almost take this into a hip circle, so you could round up and then hips to the side, so almost circling the hips in this sort of, so that can be quite a nice one to be doing. Okay, so just getting a little bit of movement through the spine in that hands and knees position, which is usually a nice safe position to do. Another one, so for the thoracic rib sort of pain, what we call an arm open or a book open exercise can be quite nice. So this might be a bit tricky to show you, but I'll see if I can do it. Okay, so if you can see me, so hold it like that. My son's just come in, but I'm just going to get him to hold it like that. Okay, so lying on your side with your knees bent up, perfect, that's good, and arms out in front of you. Okay, so just lying on your side like this, and you're going to take a breath in. As you breathe out, open your top arm, and then just turning behind you and breathing in, and then coming back onto your side. So it's just that rotation through that upper back, and just seeing how far you can go in a nice comfortable way, and then coming back. And I would usually say just trying like 3 on each side. So knees bent up in front, arms out in front, and just lying on your side, getting that arm opening for, so that's more specifically for thoracic and the rib pain. Would be worth trying that, just gentle sort of arm opens. No, good. So yeah, so some glute stretches, just some cat stretches, so getting a bit of movement through your spine in that hands and knees position, your arm open, some of those stretches are really nice. Some pelvic floor and some really gentle core work can be really good as well. So we do want you strengthening your tummy muscles. Sometimes people are a bit worried about using their abdominal muscles during pregnancy, but we wouldn't be doing anything even close to sort of a sit-up or anything like that, obviously, but doing some really gentle core type strengthening exercise can be really good as well. So yeah, so again, that can be done in that hands and knees position. That's often the best position to be doing some gentle core. But let's have a think about actually how do we switch on our core muscles. And again, sitting or standing, you can practice this as well. So I'm just going to go through it with you. So you could be sitting or standing, and I want you just to think about letting your tummy muscles go. So let your tummy just kind of flop, okay? Imagine you're trying to get into a pair of jeans and you've got a zipper to do up. So sort of from your pubic bone, just halfway up towards your belly button, imagine you're trying to get a zipper done up there. And so if we take a breath in, and then as you breathe out, imagine you're doing your zipper up, and this low part of your tummy, you've just really gently got to draw in. That's how we sort of think about switching on our core, and then relax and let it go. So again, if you think about, so you could try this now, if your tummy nice and relaxed, take a breath in. As you breathe out, imagine you're doing your zipper up. And we gently draw in, and when I say gently, I mean about 20 to 30% effort. So we're not pulling in as hard as we can, it's about 20 to 30% effort. And then you just sort of try and keep breathing in and out, and then relax and let it go again. So that you can practice in any position. You can practice it standing, you could practice it in sitting. that hands and knees position. So we went up into the rounded position, we came down into that arched position. If you come right into that midway position and just practice that, and it can be really a nice one because you can feel that you're almost lifting bub up, almost with your tummy muscles, giving your baby a little bit of a hug with your muscles, so gently drawing tummy muscles in that hands and knees position. So that can be a really nice one as well. So they're probably yeah, that's probably the few that I would just think, you know, they're quite nice ones for most people to be able to try. The glute stretch, some cat-cow, just to get a bit of mobility. The arm opens are quite nice, and just some gentle tummy work. Let me just have a quick look at these, and otherwise we might talk about pelvic floor. I think the question about Braxton Hicks and irritable uterus is probably best deferred back to the midwife, I would say. Again, you know, yeah, that one I'd probably suggest discussing with the midwife. And then, yeah, so, yeah, we've been talking quite, just for the past half hour, talking about PGP type symptoms, so it might be worth for Anita that just joined, maybe having a look back over the advice that we've discussed so far. Hopefully that will give you some things to try. But let's talk calf stretches. Yes, sorry, right. A calf stretch. So again, I'm going to try, so basically, I'm going to just show you we're going to go into a bit of a lunge position for the calf stretch. So if you take a step back, hopefully you can see that. So we're stretching this calf here. That one, heel goes into the floor and you're just gently lunging forward. Can you see that? Is that okay? And then the other. So you just take a step back, press your heel down into the floor, bend the front knee, and just wanting that stretch into the calf muscle at the back. That's your calf stretch. Is that okay? That's fine. So yeah, and with stretches again, any stretches aiming to hold for sort of 15 to 20 seconds. Do it on both sides. If they help, you can do those stretches, you know, 2 or 3 times a day, and that can be yeah, quite good. Okay, let's have a little chat about pelvic floor, because that sort of applies to pregnancy and postnatally. And then if yeah, we can also have a quick chat about tummy muscles and separations, if you like. So, pelvic floor. Okay, so hopefully you've had a bit of a think about pelvic floor, and some of you might be doing some pelvic floor exercises. So our pelvic floor muscles go from pubic bone at the front, slinging underneath to tailbone at the back. So they're that sling of muscles that go underneath from front to back. They help support the bladder, the uterus, and the bowels, and they are really important for controlling bladder and bowel function. So, if you think of your pubic bone at the front and your tailbone at the back, and you've got the urethra where you pass urine, vagina and back passage, those 3 openings passing through the middle of these muscles, your pelvic floor muscles tighten and lift up. They squeeze and lift up around those 3 openings. So they're tightening and pulling up around the urethra, vagina and back passage. So they help support, like I said, bladder, uterus and bowel, and baby at the moment, and help control our bladder and bowel function. So really important to be doing during pregnancy and again afterwards. There's really good evidence, I should say also, so there's really good reasons to be doing pelvic floor at the moment. So we know that around 50% of women in their first pregnancy will have some degree of leaking with their bladder. So it might be leaking with coughing or sneezing, for example. You're much less likely to be in that 50% if you're doing pelvic floor exercises. We know that about 30% of women early on postnatally will have some leaking as well. Again, you're much less likely to be in that 30% of women if you've been doing pelvic floor exercises during pregnancy. Also, just by, if you you know, if you can work on pelvic floor and be able to coordinate tightening and lifting up your pelvic floor with coughing or sneezing, that can be, to eliminate leaking for a lot of women as well. So, pelvic floor. So how do you do a pelvic floor exercise? So, the best, I guess, analogy that I like is you're sort of thinking about puckering and pulling in around the back passage. So imagine you're trying to hold wind and you're just puckering and pulling in around the back and keep zipping up almost towards the pubic bone. So start at the back, pulling in around the back passage. Imagine you're holding wind, but then try and keep pulling up towards the vagina and then up towards the pubic bone, and then relax and let go. You might feel that you draw those low tummy muscles, the core muscles that we just sort of talked about. You might feel that you're pulling those in a little bit as well, and that's okay. What we don't want is that you're clenching your glutes, so you shouldn't be clenching the outer buttock muscles, shouldn't be squeezing your thighs together, shouldn't be holding your breath. So puckering and pulling in around the back passage, keep zipping up towards pubic bone, and then relax and let go. So there's two different types of exercises we'd normally do. Those ones where you just tighten and release. So tightening and pulling up, release and let go. Tighten and pull up, release and let go. Up to 10 of those in a row. And also up to 10 where you try and squeeze and hold. And everyone's going to be a bit different with that. Some people might be able to quite happily squeeze and hold and keep breathing for 10 seconds, and that they might have no problem with that. Others will really find that hard and may only be able to squeeze and hold for sort of 2 or 3 seconds. So it's really trying to find out how long you think you can hold a squeeze for. For that I just get you to try. So start with like a 3-second hold. If you think, yeah, that's okay, try 5 seconds. If that's okay, you know, try 6 or 7 seconds and just keep trying until you think, okay, no, that's my limit. So for example, a 3-second hold, you would be thinking, okay, I'm going to try and tighten and pull up. Now hold, 2, 3, big relax, let it go. Is that okay? If you think, wow, that was probably just as much as I could hold, then just stick with that. 3-second holds. If you think you can try a bit more, you know, go up to 5, go up to 7. So up to about a 10-second hold is a really good aim. Really want to make sure you feel that release and let go. Okay, so you want to feel the pulling up, but equally you want to feel that release. Trying to do about up to 10 of those quick ones if you can. You might only be able to do 5 or 6, that's fine, but how many of those quick ones can you do? Up to about 10 in a row. And then how long do you think you can hold a pelvic floor squeeze for? And how many do you think you can do in a row? Again, up to about 10 in a row, up to about a 10-second hold. So a good aim is 10 quick and then 10-second hold, sort of 10 in a row. And ideally doing it about 3 times a day. It gets a lot harder as you get sort of further into pregnancy because your muscles are really trying to sort of lift up and hold, more weight, and the pregnancy hormones make everything a little bit laxer, a bit more stretchy, and so it is a lot harder. So don't worry if you think, gosh, this used to feel a lot easier. By the end of pregnancy, you might, you might sort of think that actually I'm going backwards. But we still know that if you're doing the exercises, it does, minimise your risk of sort of leaking. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to be doing some pelvic floor exercises. Again, unless you've been advised for any reason to do with your pregnancy that you shouldn't be, we would encourage most women to be doing pelvic floor exercises during pregnancy. Just another, so for Sarah, that's again, a lot of this, hopefully, the sore hips and sleeping with the pillow between your knees. Again, I would try some heat packs on your glutes and stretches for your glutes. But if it's really pain just on your hips when you're sleeping, that's a really tricky one. It's really just constantly sort of changing sides in bed. But yeah, so maybe some heat packs, maybe some stretches, good sleeping position. But it is a really common one. It's not too late. So question, when is it too late to start pelvic floor exercises? It's not too late at all. You can start at any point during pregnancy. There's no need to stop them at any during pregnancy, unless there's a reason to do with your pregnancy that you shouldn't be doing pelvic floor. No, there's no time that's too late. I would definitely be starting them, even if you're just doing them for a few weeks. You know, it's worth starting to get into some pelvic floor. And then if we sort of have a quick think about, just conscious of the time. Okay, so pelvic floor after pregnancy. So, yeah, we definitely want you to be sort of getting back into some pelvic floor exercises after pregnancy. So, you can start pelvic floor exercises after pregnancy, basically, unless you've got a catheter in. So some women might have a catheter in for the first, you know, up to 24 hours maybe, but essentially, otherwise, yeah, once your catheter's out, you can start doing some pelvic floor. Obviously, it's going to feel a bit different after you've given birth. Things can be maybe a bit sore, maybe a bit swollen, but it is safe to start doing your pelvic floor exercises, and we're going to start really, really gently. So almost just think of those early days after pregnancy as finding your pelvic floor. So, you know, we're talking about that gentle tightening and pulling in, release and let go. And that, you know, you're not trying to squeeze and pull in as firmly or hard as you can. You're not trying to squeeze and hold. In those first few days, it's just trying to find the muscles again. So tighten and pull in, release and let go. Tighten and pull in, release and let go. Really gently, just think, can you feel those muscles working? And you might just try and do 5 to 6 of those gentle squeezes a few times a day. Just thinking about finding those muscles again. And then day by day, week by week, as things feel a bit better, swelling might go down. If you've got stitches, they might be healing and generally start to feel a bit better. But there's no problem doing the pelvic floor with stitches. So you can, if you've got stitches, don't worry. It's still absolutely fine to be doing your pelvic floor. We want you to be starting your pelvic floor, basically. But yeah, day by day, week by week, just start to build things up again. So, and I often think, hopefully an easy way to remember it is week by week, starting to, see if you can hold for a bit longer. So, for example, I often say to women, okay, when your baby's 1 week old, can you squeeze and pull in and hold for 1 second and then release and let go, doing, you know, up to 10 in a row a few times a day. When your baby's 2 weeks old, see if you can move up to a 2 second hold. So squeeze and pull in, count to 2, release and let go, up to 10 in a row a few times a day. So week by week, just can you add on that extra second hold and still be doing just those quick ones. So the squeeze that, you know, so we're still always doing the quick squeezes and the holds. So we postnatally start to build up the holds. And gradually week by week, so we're aiming to get to that 10-second hold and 10 in a row, plus those 10 quick ones. But that can take you weeks and weeks, and for some women they might get there in 4 or 5 weeks. Other women it might take months to get back to that point. So, but it's just a matter of building up the exercises again. Like I mentioned at the beginning, our service has changed with all the coronavirus sort of changes at the moment. So we used to have a physio coming around to the postnatal ward at the JR, so one of our physios or our therapy assistant. And what we were finding, they were still doing that a few weeks ago. But generally, lots of the women are going home quicker, so just trying not to be in hospital for as long. And also, quite understandably, a lot of the women that we were trying to duck in and sort of see to give some postnatal advice to would rather not have anyone extra in their room at the time, which is absolutely quite understandable. So at the moment, we've actually got our therapy assistant working from home and just doing phone consults with a lot of the postnatal women, and you can self-refer for that. So if you do, once you've had your baby, if you want a phone call from our therapy assistant just to go through some advice on your pelvic floor, tummy muscles, getting back into exercise, any of that just general advice, you can self-refer, and it's just emailing us. So our email address is, I wrote it down so I don't forget, it's physio@womensandmenshealth.nhs.net. Now these are up on posters around delivery suite and the maternity wards, the midwives hopefully will know about that. So if you want just a phone call to have some of this postnatal recovery advice, just send us an email. We'll pop you on our list. Claire will give you a call and hopefully answer any questions you have. So the email is physio@womensandmenshealth.nhs.net. And they can give you some more advice, but certainly if we're thinking pelvic floor, definitely encouraging you to be doing some pelvic floor exercises during pregnancy, and then resuming them and starting to try and build them up again postnatally. Just a few more questions, let's have a look. So sleeping on your left side, ideally we definitely want you sleeping on your side. I think it's it's really difficult to stay on the left side the whole time. Changing from side to side, because you can get really sore in the hips. It's definitely advisable to be lying on your side rather than lying on your back. Someone else has just said, I'm more comfortable sleeping on my back. My midwife has said that it's if I'm propped up with pillows. So yeah, it's definitely lying flat, sort of just flat on your back, we would definitely want to avoid. I think sometimes women worry when they wake up lying on their back, but we do move around in our sleep. So, if you wake up, just then roll, move into a different position. But I think, I would be avoiding lying flat on your back to try and go to sleep. I would definitely be avoiding that. I'd be trying to be on your side if you can, or like you've sort of been advised to be propped up. Should we just finish with having a bit of a chat about tummy muscles, because that's often another concern or worry for women during pregnancy, and I think more and more so. So abdominal separation, I think it's really important to remember that it's completely normal. It's normal to have some abdominal separation. So what is abdominal separation? What we're talking about is with your abdominal muscles, so you've got abdominal muscles that go from underneath your ribs down to the pubic bone, and we have 4 layers of muscles. So you've got your outer, so these muscles here, your rectus abdominis. So if you see someone with a 6-pack, that's the outer layer, and they're the muscles that help bend you forward. So basically if you were doing a crunch, that's your outer rectus abdominis. You then have 2 layers of obliques that more come out to the side here. And they help bring us again into a forward bend and a bit of a twist. So kind of if you were doing an oblique crunch, that's more your oblique abdominals. And then you've got your deep abdominals. So they run more, the fibers run and wrap around into your low back. So these are the deep abdominals through here. So there's 4 layers of abdominals on each side, and they come into a layer of connective tissue through the middle called the linea alba. So it's like tendon, ligament, that sort of firm connective tissue. It goes around the belly button down to the pubic bone. So this band of connective tissue comes up around the belly button and up underneath the sternum, and that brings both sides of the abdominal muscles together. So that softens during pregnancy with your pregnancy hormones, and as your baby grows, your abdominal muscles and this connective tissue, the linea alba, have to stretch outwards. So they stretch in length and they stretch out to the side, so they get wider. So they get longer, wider, and they thin out. So that connective tissue gets longer, wider, and it thins out, and with your pregnancy hormones it's softer as well. And that's why during pregnancy you might find that if you sit straight up, you see your tummy poke out into a little bit of a dome, and that's what we call it, doming, because that connective tissue just doesn't have that firmness and strength to keep everything sort of nice and sort of held down like it normally would. So during pregnancy, I would definitely say just try and avoid anything where you see that doming. So when you go to get out of bed, rather than sitting up, try rolling onto your side and pushing up with your arms so that you don't get that doming, because we do want to avoid it if we can. But we know that that's normal, that your baby's growing and these structures do have to stretch. What's normal? So in terms of what's normal with the width of that linea alba, is up to 2 or just over 2 centimetres. So some women postnatally be like, well, I've got a finger gap, but separation, because it's much easier to test it postnatally than during pregnancy. When bub's still there, it's quite hard to assess how much sort of stretch or separation there has been. It's much easier to check it postnatally. But if you've got 1 or 2 fingers, if you've got sort of 2 centimetres, that's within a normal range. We know that that's sort of, the linea alba could be that wide anyway. But often it's the fact that it's a lot softer still, so it's just not as firm. It's the strength of that connective tissue that might be the problem. So that's something that can be checked postnatally, like I said. So your midwife would often check it, and again often refer you to us if they think it's a slightly larger separation. So if it anything like sort of 2 fingers or 2 centimetres or even 3 centimetres, 3 fingers early on is not something I would be worried about, because we know that, like I said, it's really normal to have that. Women will have a slightly larger separation, and then their midwives might refer you on to us. At the moment, our assistant Claire would give you a call if that's the case and just go through some general advice with you, and then we would be hoping to sort of follow you up down the track, when hopefully we can get you back in for a face-to-face appointment, so we can check and see how well how it's recovering. But again, they do tend to get better. Our body, our skin and connective tissue and muscles and everything have this ability to sort of stretch and then recover, but we just want to monitor that and make sure really that you're doing the right things. So postnatally, again, if you feel that you've got a bit of a gap between the muscles, and your midwife might have checked that, we really still want to be avoiding anything where you see that sort of doming or bulging out the middle of your tummy. So avoiding like sitting straight up out of bed, so still rolling onto your side and using your arms to sit up. If you were starting to sort of get back into some exercise, avoiding anything where again you see that sort of bulging out the middle of your tummy. The exercises that I showed you, for now, for during pregnancy, are often really nice ones to start with early postnatally as well. And then, week by week, gradually you can sort of start to build up some of those exercises, but we don't want to be doing anything where you kind of get a bulge, or doming out of your tummy. So, but I think it's really important to remember that it is normal to have a degree of sort of rectus or tummy separation, and it's because you've grown a baby and everything has had to stretch. But there will be some women that have a slightly larger separation, and your midwives would tend to refer you to us, and we can help monitor the recovery of that. And at the moment, like I said, initially it would be, we'll give you a call and give you a little bit more advice over the phone. I don't know if there's any other specific questions, but otherwise I guess it's probably time to sort of finish up. I'm more than happy to do another session on another week, and we can talk about other aspects, things like getting back into exercise postnatally, or more sort of information on any of the things that we've covered today, or just going over things again. So more than happy to do that. And yeah, so just a reminder, firstly, your midwives can refer you if you've got, if you're having a lot of pain with the pelvis or back or anything at the moment. You can refer yourself postnatally if you've would like some advice early on. So again, the email is physio@womensandmenshealth.nhs.net. There are some really good resources online just for more general advice on managing PGP, back pain, hip pain, other kind of really common pregnancy-related conditions. One is pelvicpartnership.org.uk, and our professional group POGP have a really great leaflet online. So it's pogp.csp.org.uk/publications, and the leaflet name is Pregnancy-Related Pelvic Girdle Pain for Mothers-to-Be and New Mothers, and it's quite a big leaflet and it covers loads of information on these kind of aches and pains during pregnancy. So hopefully that's been helpful, but again, really happy to do another session some point in answering any other questions or cover other issues. Yeah, okay, thanks very much.